Another week and another undefeated team bites the dust. We'll talk about all that and more as I go over my college football top 25, but stick with me until the end of the video because I'm going to give you my top 5 Heisman contenders. What's crackin' lacking? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become bro and subscribe, but leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. Let me know what you think in the comment section below where we had that nice, that beautiful, that football discourse. Let's go ahead and get into this sucker with my fallers. My only faller this week out of the top 25 is the Duke Blue Devils. They got goose egged against Louisville, 23-0. Riley Leonard isn't healthy. The ankle's hurt, and it's apparent. Very likely Riley Leonard will return next year for Duke, and it just looks like they're currently on the downslope. Now, my teams that just missed the cut, got to start with Fresno State and a very good win against UNLV, beating them 31-24. UNLV did have a chance to tie the game at the end, but went right through the receiver's hands in the end zone. Fresno State, they end up winning. They are legit contenders there in the Mountain West. And then I have my Miami Hurricanes. You, baby, you. And I'm going to be honest, we look more like pretenders than actual contenders. We end up being in Virginia, but Virginia, coming off the big win last week against North Carolina, had us on our heels this whole game. It took overtime to beat Virginia 29-26. We travel to NC State next week. That's a team that's been playing good football. Maybe that's where my dreams of the Hurricanes contending for the ACC go up in flames. We shall see. UCLA also up here with a good win against Colorado. They really turned it on in the second half where they scored 3 touchdowns, end up beating Colorado 28-16. The Pac-12 really think they're just going to start killing each other, as we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. And then Tennessee, very good win against Kentucky. Charles Campbell comes up clutch with 2 field goals from 30-plus yards, yet another 2 from 40-plus yards. And they needed every bit of it to beat Kentucky 33-27. Kentucky just won't go away in that game. Now Tennessee is at 6-2, and they will go on to face the Huskies this upcoming week. Not the Washington Huskies, but the Connecticut Huskies, the UConn Huskies. I know they're a 1-win team, but hey, they're one of the better 1-win teams in the nation. They have a lot of close games that could have been victories. And to wrap up this Just Missed It, I have Troy, who beats Texas State 31-13. They only allowed 3 points in the second half. The defense just locked it in, and now they will go on to face a rival of theirs last season, South Alabama. They had a lot of close games last year to decide the division there. But let's go ahead. Let's get into this top 25, starting with Toledo. Toledo was on a well-deserved bye this week after a big win against Miami, Ohio last week. They'll return, I think, Tuesday night, actually, to take on Buffalo. But Toledo, man, 7-1, looking really good. North Carolina, they're big fallers here as they lose to Georgia Tech, 46-42. The defense is atrocious. Atrocious. This is now back-to-back just bad losses. Or in North Carolina, they'll get Campbell this upcoming week, so that should be a win, but it does feel like they're trending the wrong way. And then Kansas coming in at 23, and this was just a massive victory against Oklahoma, beating them 38-33, still without their starting quarterback Jalen Daniels, but Jason Bean doing a solid enough job there. They basically they converted on 4th down and then go on to score the go-ahead touchdown, leaving not a lot of time left on the clock for Oklahoma, and they really just had a heave to the end zone that obviously they did not convert. And yeah, big win for Kansas, man. Just go ahead, pull down those field goal poles and throwing them in a lake. That's something. Liberty, they remain undefeated, beating Western Kentucky 42-29. They just ran over one of actually the better run defenses in college football. So yeah, man, Liberty, man, undefeated. One of the few undefeated teams still remaining in college football. Matter of fact, at 21 here, I have Air Force, who is also another one of those undefeated teams. They beat Colorado State 30-13, and like the biggest takeaway from this game is Snowball Gate. Apparently, Colorado State fans were throwing snowballs at Air Force. What a time to be alive. What a time. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. When you use promo code Broshmo at Underdog Fantasy, they will match that first deposit up to $100 dues. It's the best place to play weekly best ball, or my favorite, higher or lower on player prop bets. Some of Gojo's favorite picks for Monday Night Football. He's currently got Devontae Adams, higher than 6 receptions. Jared Goff, higher than 20 fantasy points. Aiden Hutchinson, higher than a half a sack. Jameson Williams, higher than 24.5 receiving yards, but he does have Josh Jacobs, lower than 63.5 rushing yards. Sorry, Josh Jacob owners in fantasy. Lions got a really good run defense. But as always, please bet responsibly. At 20, I have Oklahoma State, who will have a huge game this week against Oklahoma, but they beat down on Cincinnati 45-13. Ollie Gordon now. He had 282 rushing yards, I think, last week. This week, 271. He's going off right now. Let's see how he does against Oklahoma, who don't know what the update is on Danny Stutzman, but might have lost probably their best player on the defense. James Madison. They didn't cover this week. They've been a covering machine thus far this season, but 20.5 proved to be too much. But I did take James Madison. I will say this. I did take James Madison to win the first half and the final score, and I did hit on that. So, yeah. But they beat ODU 30-27. The defense did enough to hold off Old Dominion in the fourth. I think Jalen Green had 2.5 sacks in this game, so good on him. And then Oregon State. They go down and they lose in the zoo to Arizona. Arizona is a solid squad this year. They end up losing 27-24. Arizona was able to push it to a 10-point lead with about 2 minutes left. DJU drives the team down the field, but they had to rely on onside kick because they didn't have enough timeouts after they scored the touchdown, and they were unable to get the onside kick. Arizona, man's been doing a good job this year. They've had a lot of close losses. Mississippi State, Washington, USC, but they've had some good wins recently. Oregon State, Washington State. So watch out for Arizona, man. They could definitely spoil some of these other teams, these teams that remain on their schedule season. But tough loss for Oregon State. Really is really sad, man. Oregon State's a team I like rooting for. Just what can I say, man? The Beavers. It's one of the better mascots. They'll take on Coach Prime next week, though. And then I have Utah at 17, who is also coming off probably a worse looking loss, losing 35-6 to Oregon. The offense just had no fight in it. I mean, we did a watch along of that game, and it was just like, wow, man, Oregon's just having their way with them. Really felt that way. Probably should have Oregon State one spot ahead of Utah, but is what it is. I think Utah has the better losses, if I'm going to be honest, with one being Oregon State. But I mean, they're both here in the same like stratosphere. So I mean, I think you could order them whatever way you want. Tulane coming here at 16, beat Rice 30-28. So this is the second consecutive week that Tulane got up big and then just let their opponent back in. Like North Texas just did that. They did that last week. North Texas almost actually had an upset on Memphis, I believe, this past weekend. But yeah, Tulane, man, a couple of close calls now. So something to keep an eye on. I still think they're the best team in the American Conference. But now UTSA is on the up and up, but they're undefeated in conference play. Like, watch out, man. That's a team getting healthy, too. At 15, I have Mizzou. They're on their bye, but unfortunately, they have to travel to Athens to take on Georgia is gonna be it's gonna be the biggest game of the season for Mizzou. I don't know how they're gonna hold up. I don't think it's gonna be favorably, but we shall see. At number 14, I have Notre Dame. They just laid the beat down on Pittsburgh, 58-7. Audric Estime had 3 touchdowns. The safety Xavier Watt, I think, had 2 interceptions in this game. Just beat down Pittsburgh. And then LSU, well, let's talk about Louisville first. Louisville coming in at 13. They beat Duke. I kind of already went into just that when I was talking about Duke, but Jordan ran right through the Duke defense. It was slaughter. So they went 70, or they're now at 7-1, and legitimately someone to watch out for in the ACC. They take on a Virginia Tech team that's been playing much better recently. And then LSU, they were on the bye, but they get the big game this week against Alabama. And of course, it's in Tuscaloosa because all of Alabama's hard games are in Tuscaloosa. So that's probably going to be the game of the week. See, this is kind of the game where it's like things could get messy. If LSU wins, that kind of puts Ole Miss then in the driver's seat for the SEC championship. So definitely one to watch out for. But then again, I'd have to look what the tiebreaker would be, because that's then a loss apiece in SEC play for LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Speaking of Ole Miss, they're here at 11. They beat Vandy 33-7. They ran right through that Vandy defense. Yes, they did. At number 10, I have Oklahoma, who talked about had that tragic loss to Kansas 38-33. Unable to get the TD as time expires, and also Stutzman is hurt, their best defensive player, so that's something to keep an eye out for. Penn State, they beat Indiana, but it wasn't good. They only won 33-24. It was a poor showing at home after losing to Ohio State. They were 30.5-point favorites, and I wasn't even confident with them at that. I bet them down to 23.5. I bet them down to 20.5, and they win by 9. The offense didn't look entirely great. I don't know, man. Penn State's this wasn't the type of win you wanted coming out of that loss against Ohio State. Alabama, they're here at 8. They're on a bye. This past week, they will face LSU this week, and again, probably game of the week. Texas, they beat BYU 35-6. No Quinn Ewers, no problem. Malik Murphy played a really good game aside from an interception. And then Oregon here at 6 just put the beat down on Utah. The defense smothered the Utes. Oregon definitely, Oregon and Washington feel like the clear favorites right now in the Pac-12. Really kind of hope they will see one another one more time this season, because they had such a phenomenal game. And then the top 5, got to start with Washington, who beat Stanford 42-33. Stanford's playing a little bit better as of late, since they got that crazy win over Colorado. But Penix, he drops 4 tutties in this game, so it's gonna be hard matching offenses with Washington. Ohio State, they beat Wisconsin 24-10, meaning they didn't cover because it was minus 14.5. Oh, golly. It felt like they just did enough offensively. Defensively, they played a good game. Wisconsin did lose Braylon Allen early in that game, though. Florida State, they beat down on Wake Forest 41-16. Literally beat the brakes off the Demon Deacons. Keon Coleman had a good day. Trey Benson had a huge screenplay, go for 80 yards. So, Florida State in the driver's seat there in the ACC. Georgia beat Florida 43-20. Big day on offense for Georgia and company, whether you were Edwards, whether you were Ladd McConkey. The offense just came out and got up quick on Florida after they scored the initial touchdown. And Michigan remains here at number 1 as they are coming off of a bye, and they will be taking on next week. Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're going to want a nice hefty watch list of players during this college football season, well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only 30 bucks by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always. Technically, it's a Google spreadsheet. So send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals. And guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase and it's a great way to support the channel. Starting at number 5, I still have Caleb Williams. He's still putting up really good numbers, even though USC has struggled since coming out of their bye. They really have. He had 4 total touchdowns against California, man, they were a 2-point conversion away from winning that ball game. But Caleb Williams, he's still playing really good ball. Dylan Gabriel coming in here at number 4, so he drops a spot. Not a bad game from him. Did have the interception, but 3 rushing touchdowns just wasn't enough to get by Kansas this week. I imagine he might end up sliding even further. We'll see how they do against Oklahoma State this coming weekend. At number 3, JJ McCarthy. He was on a bye, but it didn't really matter. He moves up a spot here with 21 total touchdowns on the year, and I imagine those numbers will continue to go up against Purdue. At number 2, another cat who was on a bye is Jaden Daniels, who is LSU's got 2 losses, but Jaden Daniels is putting up all the offense in the world. 30 total touchdowns through the season thus far. 2,500 yards passing, 500 rushing. The guy he's reigning in offensive stats right now. And number 1 continues to be Michael Penix for me. 4 touchdown passes this game against Stanford. Did have 1 interception, but for the most part, he was unstoppable, and he will continue to be my number 1 as of right now. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do that YouTube thing, and as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.